Bodhisattva should has to develop all sentient beings and also has to practice in the method that uh, relies on the offering and also other means. Well, when we talk about bodhisattva, there are things that needs to be understood, and also when it also includes the word mayana, there's a reason why we use the term mayana. Something slightly similar. We're not talking about this with something slightly similar, but looking at the bean, and when we look at the bean seed, we say that's the bean. But if that's not the bean, we don't say that's a bean. And also when you look at the rice, we say that becomes a rice. But with something that is other seed, we don't say that belongs to as a rice. So when we say bodhisattva or mayana, the practitioner themselves, they are all bodhisattvas. They are not arahants or they are also not some patriarch. It's very clear. Mahayana refers to someone who practices 6 paramitas. And the means called 6 paramitas is already out there very clear. In Mahayana practitioners, we all call them as bodhisattvas. And bodhisattva, there is no bodhisattva that has not developed the bodhicitta. Bodhisattva without bodhicitta, they are all lies. So in Hinayana, the people who strive for arahant, we don't even say they are Mahayana, and we don't even say they are bodhisattvas, but they are Sudan, Saran, and Maran, and we don't say they are Mahayanas. If without the basis of Mahayana, but if we practice the Diamond Sutra with diamond, or if we practice the concentration with the fundamental question, then it only becomes a patriarch. Or you need to have the Hinayana as its basis and say you are practicing Samatha Vipassana. It has to be clear, and there has to be arahant and a bodhisattva. If you say bodhisattva is nothing but only if patriarch is the best, then you should also get rid of all the Mahayana textbooks. So here the bodhisattva is they refer to the practitioners of Mahayana. It doesn't matter if they are monk or they are just common lay people. As a monk, you are practicing your own practice, and lay people, they are practicing with their 5 precepts. This has already been organized, and it is not something that this could happen, but it has been organized very clearly. So bodhisattva like this has the responsibility to mature all sentient beings. What does it mean? There are 2 things. The first one is you have to strengthen their merit and also virtue. And here the merits and virtue, they are the prior pre-practice to do something. So for example, to say, if you have luck as per the common people, if you're healthy, if you have money, if you have children, then luckiness in your common life, is a precondition for you to become a monk. Without that, if you're weak, if you're poor, then you cannot study. It makes it very difficult for you to go on practice. If it's difficult because you have no money, because you're sick, or also because you are so poor. Even if you say you are practicing, you are doing your own practice, people would not even believe that you are actually doing your practice. That could also happen. If that happens, the practice becomes impossible. So a bodhisattva, for the good of all sentient beings, a bodhisattva should also help and teach the people to accumulate the merit and also virtues and luckiness. That is also their responsibility. And also they have to lead the way so that they could also study at the time of the ultimate truth. So that they could make sure that people who study Buddhism could also have the platform to study. That's the role of the bodhisattvas. So other than that, we don't say they are monks or they are bodhisattvas. Especially, you have to be careful. For Koreans, no matter how much we tell them, it looks like they have some deficiency. When you listen to Mahayana's teaching, if we tell you not to do wrong things, you just say, oh, you have been doing that before, so you continue with it. And so if you want to be with the person who does the wrong thing, if you have the power to save them, then do it together. If you're doing the bad thing together, you keep doing something. You keep doing it, and you keep having wrong thoughts, and you still believe that that's the result of this teaching. You compromise yourself, and as a bodhisattva, if you do that, then you will go straight to the hell. Bodhisattva should not do wrong things. Why don't they do the wrong things? They are the people who try to help you not to commit sin. But then, how could they try to provide you to commit sins? That's a very serious problem. Bodhisattva, if it's never correct, then they never commit. And even when you're bringing up your little children, if they're going around with someone who's drinking or fighting, you tell them not to go together with them. Why is that so? Because you're afraid that they will be covered by them. But children would think that if I don't spend time with them, there is no one who play with them. It might seem right, but that is not right. Even at the time, if you don't lead the friend, then the friend will commit more sins and it becomes more problematic. So the most important thing here is someone who is practicing bodhisattva, they should be able to figure out what is right and what is not right. And so if that's not right, you should stop it because it doesn't help at all. It's not only level of not helping, they would go to hell and you yourself would also fall into hell together. It's a very important thing. Bodhisattva is someone who practices Buddhism. And what kind of Buddhism do they practice? To the sentient beings, first, I try to, and they also try so that the lay people, they don't fall into the three evil paths, so that they could do good things. If you don't have the ability to save them, then don't meet them. The meeting itself, if you meet them on the way, it is said in the way to Bodhisattva. If you meet someone like that, then They just bid your greetings and go away. Then people also say the people would also be secluded. That is not so. If you let go of the inflammation, then you fear that the skin will be having some problem. But then you need to let go of the inflammation, the infection. Then only you meet the new relations. If there's something wrong, then the Tibetans, even the practitioners, they don't even sit with them and drink a cup of tea. If this person is only drinking, then what can you talk about it? You cannot even stop them from drinking. Now, what kind of conversation are you going to have with that person? Then what meaning does it have? Are you going to drink with them? Or when his mind is not so clear, is clouded because of alcohol, what can you do? So even our offering, when you make your offering, if the person has no, if the person is not eligible to receive the offering, which in other words, with the Buddhism, by selling Buddhism, if he's driving around good cars, if the person eats well or spends money in luxury, then the person who is giving money and also receiving money together, they fall to hell. It's not like they're, if it's wrong, then it's not the proper offering or proper receiving. I've said this countless times. So someone like Dalai Lama, well, I'm going to repeat this one more time. Even when they were praying in the monastery, in Depeng Monastery, they called about 50 headbands and they all asked a question, and in one of the one of the temple they were praying Manjushri, and then they asked, then who is the teacher? And who is the teacher, and on which text are you praying, and all? And they said this time we don't have the we don't have the teacher, and Dalai Lama said, stop the prayer. Just because you have done it routine doesn't mean it's okay. If you think it's wrong, if you think it has to be stopped, it has to stop. If you are just praying in order to be concerned, then there's no need even to make your prayer. It's said very clearly. Well, when you prostrate to your parents, you are grateful for their grace. That's why you do it. But just because it brings you calm in your heart, if you do it, then it's quite useless. It's just like you're eating a painkiller, which is also not okay. So even when you are praying, if you think it's one of the 7 offerings, and by paying respect to your teacher, if you feel you are getting closer to your teacher and your respect for teacher is growing, it's important to have that kind of thoughts. So even when we have a consciousness, the consciousness itself is not giving something to you, but you have to think why you're thinking about that, or else it could all be very superficial. Something which is wrong, you have to let them go. So what is living right? It is not doing something that is wrong. Especially in religion, it refers to something that you're not doing the wrong things. Just because that's the reality, well, whatever the reality is, if you don't go forward in the right path, then you cannot go even one step ahead. What does it mean? If there's an engine and if there's a cylinder, do you know what is the cylinder? Inside there is a piston. Well, when you open your engine,
피스톤 안에 여러분 엔진 열어보면 이 앞에
when you say there are 6 engines,
개 엔진이 달린 거거든요. 그 안에 기름이 안쪽에 실린더 안에 탁 품어지면 스파크가 되면
when there's a spark, it pushes the cylinder upwards, and then the kinetic energy is passed, and the car moves forward.
돌려서
And if in the cylinder, even if there is a hole made by needle, then the strength energy gets passed somewhere else. So there is no kinetic movement. And so if with something wrong, how can you say, oh, you're actually studying? Whether you are reciting hard the Diamond Sutra or the Thousand Handed Eye Sutra, it doesn't really matter.
심지어는
Well, if you don't want to get dirty, then don't go to the place where it's dirty. Don't go near someone who is also doing dirty things. If you don't even know to identify what is the dirt or the soybean paste, it's not okay. The teachings are very clear. It's just like the colors being shown in the sunlight. It is not under the assumptions.
아니란 말이에요.
If you are very foggy, if your head is very foggy, and if you think that's also okay, and this is also not okay, then even in your next life and life afterwards, you will keep doing the wrong things, and you'll fall into the wrong place, and you will not even find the opportunity to escape that.
너무 많단 말이야.
With other methods, you cannot get rid of the agony, and also there is no way to find your happiness.
이런 방법도 더더욱이 없어요.
That's what happens until now.
아직까지는 그래요.
Those people who believe in God, that's also the story afterwards, after death. So
사람들은 살아서
they don't think about cutting down the nirvana when they're alive. Imagine how miserable it is when they go to die, even with the bomb. They say Allah will accept them after death. If that's what they think, oh, that's a very wrong idea.
생각을 한다 그러면 그건 아주 삿된 생각이야.
Where from the beginning, Bodhisattva, someone who is studying Mahayana, they should not have anything wrong. And
그래서 자꾸 법문을 듣고 명료하게 그냥
And also just by listening to the teaching, but if they continue with the wrong way of life and keep doing the wrong things and do things that get away from the virtue, if do not segregate between listening to the teaching and your everyday life. Where there's only one difference between a great man and a petty man. The great man, when they listen to great teachers, the moment they listen, they understand and they put it to practice. And a petty person, even if they listen 200 days, although it seems like they understand, they don't put it to practice. That is the petty person. Even if you recite mantra for 100 days, the difference between the great person or the petty person, well, Buddha has not gotten his nirvana from reciting the mantras. If you're sitting so many days reciting mantras until your legs hurt, but if the moment that you get up, if you're doing wrong things, then what is it? If you say that's that and this is this, then don't do that. Don't do such kind of practice. That's a very important saying. A bodhisattva, bodhisattva is someone who teaches sentient beings how to go to the right path, but it's not someone who only consoles you. The doctors are, when they bring the mass, they bring the mass to cure you. The doctor who killed Shinachou?
지레철이 죽였다는 그 의사는 또 죽이고 또 죽이고 그랬대?
Well, I heard that he had killed quite a lot of patients, and the people who go there to be cured, they are the crazy people. So if your head is that foggy, and if your intelligence is less than reptiles, then it's very difficult thing to be alive in this world. The person has died, and if it's on the media for hundreds of times, and then what kind of patients goes there and tries to get some more treatment? A doctor, even at the time of surgery,
거기에 내 몸을 맡기고 하는 것도 그가
the patients believe that he has a right way, and they go. But Bodhisattva, if you do the wrong things, then not only your children, but your husbands and uh, your friends or your family, no one will believe you. Although they seem like they don't know, they know even from the silhouettes that it's wrong.
실루엣으로도 다 알아.
A reason why Korean Buddhism has started its deterioration is because the parents of the young children, they do things that kids don't even understand. From the beginning, the kid is studying very hard, and you want to go for 1,000 days prayer, and because of the grace of the Buddha, you have passed your test. Don't say something like that.
번잡하게 놀리고 한번 해보라고 기도를.
Ask your children to spend your time playing, and see if the result is the same.
그냥 자기가 불안해서
Well, it is just one thought that arose from your agitation, one wrong thought. Buddhist teaching, Buddhist Dharma does not lie in somewhere like that, and also it doesn't happen like that. So Bodhisattva has a responsibility to mature the lay people,
자랑복덕과 실제 본 수행의 자량의
and the first priority is wishing that the virtues and merits will be accumulated to people, and not only wishing, but they should help them to develop that.
그 인색한 사람이 복을 지을 수 있게 복의 지위
And also they should be able to make people to have those kind of sentiment to develop the sense of generosity. If they're very stingy, then they will also continue in their lives later.
위해서 그렇게 인색한 것을 갖다 좀
And because of the many problems, when this is often spoken, people don't even follow this. Then you are bound to meet again in next life as someone who is very poor. So Bodhisattva,
그래서 보살은
the first priority,
어쨌든 박복
the Bodhisattva should never lead the people to the wrongness, and also in somewhere with misfortune. If that happens, then they will fall into hell together. So that's something never possible or never acceptable. So
그래서
the place and also body,
근속 등을 원만하게 하는 보시 방편 등의 보시 지계
also body, and they should try to
육바라밀을 갖다가 자꾸
develop the people to have the sense of dhyana and samadhi, and the precepts, and also forbearing patience, and also they should also follow the rigorous discipline and means. And so even in their common everyday life, regardless whether it is their the family laws or even their friends or their direct parents or whoever it is, they should try to help them to get closer to the teachings. If not, next life and the life after, they are bound to face a misfortune.
좋지 않은 모습이 된다. 지금
all these merits and fortune nowadays, if you accumulate, then it comes to you. But then if you stop doing the activities, then they disappear.
좋아지고 또
The consciousness should develop like that, and also the behaviors, and also if the activities follow, then naturally, as much as you think in a virtuous way, you develop your merit or good luck. It will come to you as much as you develop it. This will not come to you accidentally, or this is also not as part of destiny.
그래서 보살은
So a bodhisattva, after listening to the Mahayana and also having belief in Mahayana,
이게 확실히
they have to rely on the correct teachings.
공부를 해야지 그냥 어영부영 적당하게
But they should never do things as much as how it is, or
말도 안 되는 소리들이고
and also you cannot even call that as a proper practice.
모든 형태의 사성함을
Family member with all the
예를 말합니다.
complete and oneness, wholeness.
집을 지으려고 할 때 터가
Well, when you're trying to build a house, we need to have the proper land, the basis. Just like that, we have to empty ourselves of our own greediness. Then only all the thoughts that arise afterwards for the good of all sentient beings, they are prana. And depending on the shape of all the lay people, you will have thoughts that's awakened. If I don't empty ourselves,
비우지 않으면
if for example, if we don't empty the space where we are building the house,
과거에
if we don't get rid of the house that was there previously, then the marks or residues of the previous house would remain. But
고집되어진 생각과 나라고 고집되어진 내
if I empty all the thoughts or all the persistence that I had with my name,
대상을 보면서 지혜로운 생각 이 반야의
then we'll have the wise thoughts, the thoughts of prana. It just comes to us, just like how our everyday thoughts arise, and because there is nothing that blocks us,
번개처럼 알아.
because there is nothing that blocks us, it doesn't take even a second for us to do something right. Whereas someone said, "Well, I thought about it for 4 days," and that's crazy. It just means that the person's greediness lasted for 4 days. There isn't. It comes to you like in a second. Well, it's wrong.
어떤 사람은 평생을
Some people, even if they do wrong things for the rest of their life or throughout their life, they don't even recognize that that's the wrong thing. And that's not okay. So we say it's a wisdom that has already understood the voidness, and that also, in other words, is you have seen the mind that has understood the voidness completely, and the agony is the thoughts which is not there in the beginning, but which understood the mind is full of agony and also greediness.
법봉이라면서 뭐냐면
After you have made an observation of even the objects,
대상들도
they don't have its own true nature. They are also empty. So there is no reason us to be attached at the object, whether it is my child or whether it is my husband or whether it is my property. Well, none of them have its own true nature, and they are going to disappear eventually. There is something that's going to disappear. There's nothing that will not disappear. So even the objects, well,
보고서 그렇게 하는
well, if we do it looking at an object, even if there is a mistake, if Buddha says, you also need to know that all these five skandhas are also empty or void. You have to realize that you yourself is void, and also the objects are like that too. And
그러니까 우리가 그 어떤 것에도 자세히 놓고 보면 그냥 서로 의지해서
so you have to realize that everything exists depending on each other, but there is no reason for us to be attached to something at all. Where are you going to hold on to and have your attachments at? And knowing this, we say you have experienced the voidness. On top of this, the practice of means has to support it.
만약에 아공을 넣거나 아공과 복공을 다 확실히 번뇌가 가운데 번뇌가 없어진 상태는 아공이라 그러는데 그게 어떤 상태냐면 마음이 일념이 딱 대져서 왔다 갔다 하는 생각이 하나도 없는 상태가 됐다면
When the agony disappears and when you're at a separate state, and when you're looking at the world, you realize that everything doesn't have its true nature.
그렇게만 되어져 가지고서는 되는 게 아니고
It's not okay if that's only practice, but
여기에 있잖아요.
the practice of means has to support it.
이렇게 되어졌을 때
With children, if that has happened, truly you can practice the offering, and also you can also practice as per the Diamond Sutra. Even the object doesn't have its true nature, and even the money and objects, they don't have true nature.
세계가 다 삼공이야.
It's all empty on three aspects.
아는 것을 갖다가 삼륜천정이라 그러고 그 삼공이다.
And we also say it's empty on three aspects too.
왜? 내가
Well, the emptiness of the emptiness, or the emptiness of ourself, then only we say you have achieved the threefold sunyatas or emptiness. Then only we can also have the other thoughts, and also the agony also arise then.
그거는 어디 근무하나? 네, 네? 저 만년에 근무하나? 어디? 네? 제가 썼어요.
So
그러니까
you have to do it together with the offering paramita. Here it does not only refer to offering paramita, but you also have to do it together with the all six paramitas. Even you have experienced avoidness, if it's avoidness, if it's Buddha that has only experienced avoidness, then I would not trust him. But at the time when he was alive, until so far he has practiced so, and also Buddha. When he was teaching for 45 years, he has spoken about the offering, and also the precepts and patience, and also the rigorous self-discipline religiously, and also for people, for lay people, he was always at the posture of the samatha, and also when he was preaching, he was also practicing the sense of the vipassana. Well, he was always practicing the forbearing patience. The six paramitas itself is the enactment of bodhisattva. Although we say we have achieved the enlightenment, we don't even do those things that follows up as six paramitas. We don't even follow the proper discipline. We go around drinking, and also we never practice the forbearing patience. At which activity of theirs can you say is awakened? The absolute enlightenment can only be achieved through its own conditions and also the situation for Buddha. So if you want to eat a bowl of rice, you have to plant the right seeds, and you also have to water, and you also have to harvest, and also have to use pesticide, and also you have to make the rice. After all, the rice has been harvested. Through this process, there is a cause called the rice seed, and also the condition of growing them up, and also another condition of the preparing the rice. Through all these conditions, you can eat the rice. Just like that, even enlightenment starts from the willingness to gain enlightenment. As I said once again, where does it start? The prior condition is because all sentient beings go through suffering. That's why the suffering of suffering is the very first amongst the four noble truths. And in order to free them from the suffering, because of the suffering, and also in order to free them from the suffering, for all sentient beings, you need to have the sense of sympathy and also love. And also, what is cause of the bodhisattva? All sentient beings go through the suffering of samsara, and that is the prior condition for it. You need to have the emotion and affection of saving them, and and in order to save them, the sense of compassion develops. And how can you develop your compassion, or how can you spread your compassion? Then the way is to become Buddha. And let's go to the way of becoming the Buddha. And that is the saying of Ajaje Paraje Bodhisattva, and it's an enactment of it. Let's go to the land of enlightenment. So, as per the cause and effect theory or law, without condition or without a cause, the consequence is impossible. Without cause and conditions, it's impossible to have results. Everything begins from cause, and the cause has enlarged because of the conditions. And because of that, there is a new consequence, and the new consequence itself becomes a new cause. When we had the condition of becoming Buddha, the condition of becoming Buddha has become the cause itself. And also, because of that cause, we practice the six parameters. So for someone who wishes for the betterment of all sentient beings, if the person doesn't practice the sense of offering, then with what are you going to make the sentient being to have interest at you? The result without cause can never happen, and the bodhisattvas are going through, or they're receiving the great happiness and great merit of helping others. Here, the merit or happiness here refers as bodhisattvas are always full of happiness, and because that's a merit or virtues they accumulate by helping the or lay beings. While practicing six parameters, they also have the happiness of helping all others. That's why they're always happy. Moving or acting or doing some activity for myself, it only causes suffering. And at very extreme, sometimes people commit suicide and they die, and they also kill others. And because of the selfishness, it sometimes leads to extremist activities. All these activities are very strong and very powerful and also very effective. The wishing for the betterment of all sentient beings is very effective. And
아주 큰 흐름이다. 이
other than this, there is no way that can be suggested.
방법이 없어요, 사실. 이 이상.
Bodhisattva, in order to reach the level of Bodhisattva swiftly, they have to practice the 6 parameters. After enlightenment, you also practice 6 parameters, but even before gaining enlightenment, you have to practice Bodhisattva, the 6 parameters. So through these activities and in order to gain enlightenment fast, they practice the 6 parameters, and that is the fast enlightenment, fast way to enlightenment. And that is the right enlightenment. If you don't practice the sense of bodhisattva, sense of offering, if you ask the question, can there be a Buddha who is stingy? Can there be a Buddha who doesn't follow the precepts? Can there be a lazy Buddha? Can there be a Buddha who hasn't cultivated samatha? Can there be a Buddha who cannot see the reality? If you look, but we say if you look at it the other way, but we say it's possible. Although we have the situation that is incorrect, we say it's possible to become Buddha, and that's why at autumn, when you're harvesting, in olden times, there was a machine with which we would separate the rice and also the other grass. And also in olden times, since the machines were not very developed, you still had some leftover remains. And even very stupid people, they didn't use something that has flown away as its seed. Have you ever seen a farmer who uses that as the seed? That kind of farmer would starve the very next season. But without practicing 6 parameters, if you say there is a Buddha who is very stingy, and also with the offerings that's made to Buddha, you say you save it in the bank with fixed deposit, and you say that Buddha has about 200 million. Such a Buddha, I would kick them off and make them fall off the cliff. The Shakyamuni Buddha, you can see it when you see the very basic. The Buddha's act and Buddha's speeches and everything about Buddha. After we see them, we know what is right and what is wrong. All Buddha's disciples do that. But is there any Buddha who doesn't follow the Buddhist discipline? Have you ever heard the story that Shakyamuni has fallen off after drinking and he's left off in the street? It's all cheating. Have you ever heard? Also, I heard that in Korea it's okay to do that. Someone who claims to be a saint, they're so angry and they fight in the main office, and we also had the story where they had the control over and has raised the fight itself. Because they didn't follow the orders. There's also a monastery that has demolished the monastery of their grandson's monk. The forbearing patience Buddha all his life, he was so angry. We never heard the story that when he was so angry that he went around beating others. We never heard the story. There isn't something like that. So, Bodhisattva, you have to practice hard using 6 parameters as its means. But in Korea, we also have the wrong understanding of means. Means refers as method. And it's the same word as method. When we say using it as means, it means use that as the way, and it also means that other than that there is no way. But in Korea, what do we say is a method? So because we live like that, it's not true. But just in order to calm them down, you think of 6 parameters is something similar to that. Even the 6 parameters, you think of it as something that it's okay that even if you don't practice, but just in order to encourage or console the believers, you use it. It is not so. In olden times, in order to build the house, you cut down the trees. Do you know what you do in the beginning? When you get the trees, what do you have to do first? The first thing is you have to skin them. The offering is the deepest greediness is the greediness for the materials, and also the greediness for the desire, and also the greediness for saying that it's only me who I know, and also I am not the only one who is not afraid, and because of that you all has to be scared or frightened, and that is Kim Jong-un. People do it like that, and because of that, so when you get your trees done, first you have to skin them. Then only inside the box, inside the skin, they would not eat away the wood, and they will also dry well. Then we can use it as the material. So without practicing the offering, and if you have a lot of greediness inside, then it all rots. It all rots. You believe it will not rot, but it's difficult. Even if it's a very good fridge, after 1 year of putting the pork inside, it's bound to rot. So the very end or the very outside of it that we ask you to skin, it is the act of offering. Well, some also told me that, but still, isn't it that we have to keep until enough for us to eat? And so I said, when I look at you, you will still have a lot of things to eat when I see you. Even if you give a lot, you will still have a lot left to be rot. But when I saw the person, it was like this fat. And looking at the amount that it was there, I measured how many sacks of rice, and if you calculate by in terms of money,
계산해 보면
it felt like he had about 30 million. Well, I'm a little faster than 이영자
이거는 빠릅니다.
than at this.
이용자보다는 물건 막
Where Yeongja, she calculates in less than 0.1 second. We have to we have exchanged money, Korean won to dollars, and from the dollars we change to rupees again.
또 루피로 또 바꿨어.
So we also have to calculate these rupees into Korean won.
계산해야
It
돼.
doesn't work. With my brain, it doesn't work.
내 머리
And so I have to calculate how much is it. And at times like that,
그냥 그때 가서는
we don't even calculate the Korean money or rupees. We just talk about it in dollars. Then it's not complicated.
그래야 안 복잡하지.
But if we put dollars into Korean won, and $1 is about
96원.
it has about like 96 cents later. And also if we calculate it in rupees, then again $1 is about 64.
4루피?
Then again
그렇게 하면 또
64 rupees. Then how much is a 64 rupees in Korean won?
우리나라 돈은 얼마지?
And if you start calculating, then the amount of the cost, it's confusing. And then
그러나 이제 내가 이제 볼 때는
we see that when I see her face, I can see that she has about this much of money or that much of money. Well, that I'm good at calculating. It's quite funny. The eyes,
웃긴다고 눈이요.
where there are eyes who pretends to have money although they don't have money. And there are also eyes that pretends to not have money when they have money. Well, I know when I see.
내가 보면 알아.
There are some eyes who pretends to not have money when they have.
크게 없는 척.
And even if they have money, they also pretend that they don't have money. Their eyes, it looks different. And while doing that,
그러면서 이제
if you pretend,
있는데
well, it's a lie. If when you have money, if you pretend that you don't have money, it's a lie at both sides. And if you pretend to have it when you don't have, well, if I compare, then it's just like
보거를 갖다가 그 잡아서 낚시 잡히면 이게 그
well, when you catch a blowfish and when you see it's outside, then it has its own certain the eyesight, the eyes, and it looks like that. And while doing that, when we say you don't have it, then when they lie, the expression, it all reflects from how they look.
눈빛에서 다 나와.
They hide it and they say, but others normally they would not even recognize, but I can see it. Well, that person is lying.
이 양반은 거짓말을 하고 있구나.
I can see it.
보인다.
Especially women,
특히 이제 여자분들은
when they pretend,
있는 척이나 있으면서 없는 척할 때는
because your hearts are shaking, they say many useless things.
뭐 선생님 어쩌고 저쩌고 이제 그게
And if you look deep inside, you see that there is no some essence, but you can see that there is some force truth in it.
마치 그 깨끗한 물이 잔잔하게 흐르는 듯한
Or when you are telling truth, you can see that a very clear stream is passing down. Well, the person is saying the right thing. When you see how they look, it's also right. Well, that's not a lie. You realize them.
그래, 요즘에 내가
Nowadays, although I have lost my eyesight to a certain extent, but that has my eyes in that respect has become way more brighter. That too, I can say it if I just empty myself and say it. If I try to say it with certain intention, then I cannot say it. But sometimes when I just say it without any pretension or purpose, then I can say it. Well, the person is lying. The person is just doing his lip service, where the person is saying with true intention or true truth. Well, for someone who speaks with all their true with their well, for someone like that, when they are telling me in truth, even if they tell me in terms of like opposite way, I can still accept it. Well, throughout life, when people speak the truth, it's quite beautiful. But
근데 이제 막 나를 위하는
but there are some things when they tell me that although it's uncomfortable, that it's for betterment of myself or for the good of me, I don't tell them. I just say, oh, well, that was for me. And then, although they have spoken to me in the opposite way, and although they have spoken to me for something that was against my will, since that was spoken in my favor, I don't scold them.
막 나를 위해서 사실은
But if there is no sense of sincerity, although they have spoken for me, then I don't even give a feedback.
제가 그냥 전혀
I would think that well, I can even recognize that the person has some certain other intentions, or is lying. But I know I'm also eating the temple's meals about 43 years. This is my 43rd year, isn't it?
그렇잖아요, 그죠?
Because I've been eating meals in monasteries for about 42 to 43 years. When we let go of ourselves and when you listen to the sayings, then you can feel the wavelength.
이 사람은 참으로 이제
Well, when Sata requested for teaching from Buddha,
간단하게 말하고 뭐 달랐다
after saying, "Oh, you have come very well,
그냥
good way," well,
우리 나라에 와서 법문을
and Buddha has already recognized that the person was requesting in truth. He has accepted that just in a simple speech. But still, if I go,
내가 가면
then there will be 1,250 people following. And he said, I will prepare all the accommodations, don't worry about it. And it was the end. There was no even the mentioning of the writing agreement. And also until the end, when he was building, when he ran out of money, he asked from two of his friends, well, I don't think it's like a loan, because it was not written as a loan. And also there were friends who were also merchants. They gave the money to him because he lacked some money. Because he lacked money while putting the gold.
충분히 지을 수 있는 그게 되는데 황금 깔다가 그냥 난 정말
So each time I go for pilgrimage, I see down the house of Sata. Maybe some gold could also be there under a brick. So I look at it at times.
모르잖아. 그래서 가끔 들여다본다니까. 그 끝들이
Promise.
약속이라는 것은 말이야. 약속.
It has 100% sincerity.
갖고 있기 때문에 100% 그냥
So he completed the monastery and also the accommodation until 100%, and he went to pick him up. It's ready, please come. So Buddha and his 1,250 disciples, they followed. Imagine how grand it was. And those people who doesn't believe in Buddhism, they would have a lot of anger, and
음해를 막 하고
and they also brought up a lot of mess, but it all ended in a week because they came with their legs and caused problems. They built their own graves. They digged their own graves and went off. Where Buddha has not even mentioned something or said anything about it. Even during the teachings or even at the time, they never said. Quietly, they went out and they did their fasting, and that was the only thing that they did. So you have to practice with the matter of Bodhisattva. Other than that,
무엇을 말하면 어떤 결과가 있겠습니까? 불국토라는 것이 무슨 뭐 그렇게 육바라밀 수행을 하지 않고 보리심을 바라지 않고 자비심을
without that, what does the Buddha's land mean? How can there be any Buddha's land without practicing of that? It's a lie. It's a lie to say that the land of Buddha lies somewhere else without doing those activities. This time when you went to the Shilimpo Monastery, at the place when there were 100,000 people gathered, the land itself is the land of Buddha. I thought there would be some changes in number of people, but the first day and the last day, well, that means is there are not very disruptions, and also many distracting things also has ended. When we do something like that, we cannot come on this day and that day because of families or something is going on. And if you have family, then you have to bring them furthermore. Or if they don't want to come, then you can just tell them, okay, then be at home, I'm going to go and come back. The land of Buddha is a place where the 6 paramitas are being practiced. So you experience the voidness, and you can also practice the compassion. That is the land of Buddha. Other than that, where can there be any land of Buddha? Therefore, the wisdom that has all this simple form makes the complete and wholeness of the original nature. This is something that touches me very well. Well, what is it? The 6 paramitas and also the samatha. In the end, when prana is practiced, if you can make an observation with voidness, then even the offering becomes something that is 100% complete, because there is nothing that you will not give. You understand? Because there is nothing that you will not give. You give everything, including this. If you can, even this good thought, well, everything that we say is also the teaching, and that is also the offering of the teaching. You're sharing the thought that's awakened. How beautiful is it? So this, if you study this, the 6 paramitas, offering, following the disciplines, and also forbearing patience, all of them, it's something that you have to help each other. And only if you follow the discipline, it's easy to contribute. If you are simple, and if you reduce your spendings, and if you don't use it somewhere else, where someone told me before, when I was Jinok, if I think about it, I have lived a very bad life. When I asked how bad was it, what do you mean by bad? He said, when I went to the park, and I also joked that, like, when I went to park, there were so many dogs. Did you live like the dog? And the person said he lived way worse. For a month, the amount they spent on drinking was more than 2 million Korean won. And he went to many different places drinking because of business or
사업상 그렇다고 뭐 그러고.
now, since he's trying to come back to the reality without drinking, when I asked how is it, he said he really lived a bad life. So this is,
그러니까 이건
well, if I reduce how I live,
살아가는 것을 좀 줄이고
well, basically, living,
기본적으로 사는 것이 그냥 내가 목숨이
well, until
상할 정도로
well, you can just live your life until until your life doesn't end. But then if you starve, well, even if you starve, you don't have complaints, right?
불가는 없잖아.
When you're starving, even if you're starving, what can you do? Are you going to serve from others, or are you going to be angry, or what can you do?
없잖아.
Isn't it? But this,
그렇잖아. 근데 이게
only if you're upholding the precepts, you can do your offering.
더 철저한 보세요.
If I take care of my goods very well, and only if I do well, this body,
그렇게 잘해야
well, I'm not asking you to use it in any way you want, but
그러니까 아무렇게나 해버리는 얘기는 아니고
the reason why we are trying to preserve this is in order to benefit many people. Dalai Lama has said this too. Once he had cold and he was also giving teaching, and he said, I'm sorry that I didn't take care of my health, and so I'm sorry for the nasal sound. If I use my body up to how much ever I like, and if I do it as how if I do it as my likes, then how can I contribute? Well, if there's someone who is upholding the precepts, they can even contribute better, isn't it?
예? 저번에 누구한테 스님 저사님 그거 좀
When I also
네팔에 어려
asked someone to help someone in Nepal, and he said, "Well, I went to Nepal and I was angry,"
왜 생기더라.
and
그 새끼들 눈이
and they
해가지고 뭐 해물래 해가지고 그거 도와줘.
and he said, well, it's not worth helping them because their eyes, they were not very straight. If you do like that, then you cannot do offering. Then why are you helping someone who is eating well and who is also very strong at what they do? So our standard,
그 우리가 수준이 내가 차가 7천만 원짜리 같은 거
well, if you want to help someone and if you have a car that's about $70,000, then you should think that, well, I'm going to reduce my car and help them. But even that kind of thought is not easy to have. Well, buying that car just for yourself, you don't feel bad about it.
요즘 티코 이상이 뭐
But nowadays, a car above Tico level is even just better. How grand or how luxurious is it?
옛날에요.
Well, even the trains were really bad before, and the cars on when it's going up the hill, the cars stop.
때 말이야.
Then
차가 서버리잖아. 그러면 이제 뒤에다
we would put rocks under the wheels, and we would try to start the car. And since the car doesn't start, you would put down all the luggage. But nowadays, even the very smallest, very tiniest car, there is no road that they cannot go up. And I heard that even the Tico runs even faster than others. And when I asked how can they run so fast, they said Tico is trying to run very fast in order to not reveal their identity. And while running very fast, if the phone vibrates, then the car shakes. Compared to those old cars, the cars nowadays, even if you're driving awning, is a very luxurious car. When I saw it,
이놈은 차가. 나 보니까
it also has heater on the cars, on the seats,
세상에 앉으니까 등이 따뜻해가지고
and even on the handles you have the heating system.
힘들어도 공부를 때.
And if you feel cold, if you just press a button, then there is an AC. And if you feel hot, and also if you feel hot, if you feel cold, and you can put on the heater. And even the very smallest cars.
아무리 작은 차도 150.
Well, I saw the speed up to 230. That means if you go very fast, it can go up to 230, and that's the speed of airplane when they start off. How luxurious is it? It's the person who is driving not up to the standard, but the car itself is very luxurious.
지가 대부분 보면 저것이.
The drivers, you may even look ugly, but you also drive in very you also wear very good clothes, and even the makeups, you go to the department store and you buy a very expensive ones, and even for shoes you pay about this much. Well, when you see everything is luxurious, it's only you who is not luxurious.
차 놨죠?
Well, we don't have any cars in Seokcho Monastery, so
하지만은도
because you don't have any cars in Seokcho Monastery.
승용차가 하나도 없으니까 요 앞에 보니까 내가 어디 절들에 가면 그냥 앞에 주지 왜 내가 주지
Well, sometimes
주지 주차장 해놨으니까 내가 알지.
sometimes when I go to some places, it's written as this is a car of the head monk. But
마크가 나는 그걸 잘 몰라.
and what is the car with five rounds?
그런 차 무슨 또 뭐 요렇게 해가지고 뭐 이렇게 됐던가 몰라 하여튼 그렇게 해가지고 절 앞에 아 그냥 주지차라고 그 명패라도 붙여놓지 말든지 주지차 주차장에 하고.
Well, in order to hide
1, 2, 3, 4해.
whose car it is, well,
아니요?
there are also many temples which has many cars.
근데 그 절에서
But then also in those monasteries, if you ask what is it that you contribute for the betterment of others, but there isn't anything.
없다고.
Even the clothes that you buy,
사 입으면 아껴서 사 입고.
well, I don't even have to say, but
옷이 내가 보라 마나
uh,
장농석에 옷이
you have so many clothes in your closet. It's not even worth saying.
또 없어.
And all the time, you don't know how greedy you are, but then you say, well, there's nothing to wear. It's not that you have nothing to wear.
입을 게 없기는 개떡이 입을 게 없어.
Even your apartments, your houses, they're all very luxurious, very good.
집이 그냥 뭐 어떻게 뭐 저 뭐야 저 영조나 무슨 세종이 무슨 그런
Do you think the kings like Yeongjo or Sejong lived in a room that's very warm?
방이 말이요. 그 임금 자는 데가 가운데
In fear of murder, the king lived in a room. King lived in the house where there are so many same rooms, and in order to heat up such rooms, they had to use so many logs to heat it.
그 가서 불 대표나
Go to some of the old places, see if it's possible to have the heating.
추워서
Well, in France, kings like Napoleon,
나폴레옹이나 그런 놈은 또 나폴레옹이 보면
well, you can see that he's fat, right? And that's because he wore so many clothes. And also, he didn't take off the clothes, and also, and he didn't even take bath often.
임금이라고 별로 있겠니?
And because their body stinks a lot, they use a lot of perfume, and I heard that in France, the perfume developed like that. Well, it's up to you if you believe it or not. Even the houses, look at your houses. How good is it? You have the heating system. If you just press a button,
손가락만 탁 눌러놓으면 요즘은
well, nowadays you can even use the mobile to control it.
눌러놓고 하면
And if you press it like 30 minutes before you go home, it already is heated.
우리 주인님 오시니까 방을 따뜻하게 해야지. 그러고 있구나.
And even the fridge. In olden times, the kings, they didn't have the fridge. And they would go to Hangang when it's very cold, and they put it in the fridge. They put it in some place, and they're all going to melt. And so at a very cold,
수박 썰어가지고 화채
at the very
저 신하 영의정한테
at summers,
수박 화채
if they put ice in the watermelon, and if you give to some minister, the ministers will be very touched. But nowadays we use ice everywhere.
아니 무슨 세종이 핸드폰
Do you think Sejong had mobile phones? Well, we are living way better than the kings of before times. And
잘 사는데 그 유리역에 잘 사는 그
but then why are you using all these good facilities that you have right now in fulfilling your greediness? Don't do that.
아름다운 모습이라는 것은
The beauty is not wearing a beautiful clothes. It's not about having a luxurious house or, well, I've also heard before.
좀나 전에 누가 그러더라. 수석이 참 이게 엄청 비싼 겁니다. 뭐 170만 원인가 주고 샀다고 뭐 비싼 거라고 자랑을.
One person was telling me that the stone that he bought was very expensive. Well, it was the same stone that we used in olden times to store the kimchi. It's a stone. Stones are all same. So a very beautiful thing is maintaining your hygiene.
청결하게 하고 머리 질끈 동여매고
And if you feel cold, wear a little more clothes.
추우면 좀더 껴입고
And other energies,
그 나머지
even if it's a little,
내가 조금이라도
think of helping others who are living a little poorer than you. Then only your practice will be fulfilled, and also your karmas will reduce.
내 업이 그래야
Then only your practice would also develop, and you also face springtime.
화계 있잖아요, 그죠? 화계가 수리화계 오도송이
Well, the song,
노랫말을 지을 때도
even the lyrics when they are writing the songs, I hope how I was wondering how good will it be if they sing about saints rather than just talking about different provinces of Korea. Well, look at it. Well, I wanted to talk about this, and it's also written here. It's not enough only with the voidness.
그죠?
Only with experience of voidness, we don't say it's the enlightenment.
깨달음이라고 하지 않는다
Without the practice of paramita, it is not possible.
되지 않고서는 되지 않는다.
What tea is it?
이뭔 천가? 응? 티콘 아니지?
Likewise,
마찬가지로 집제법망 법 집제법 방광경에서도 설한식에서 미륵이여 보살들이 육바라밀을 완전히 성취하는 것은 구경에
well,
깨달은
it has also taken the sutras as your examples,
이에 어리석은 이들이 말하기를 보살은
where but
바라만 키면 된다.
well, foolish people, they say it's only possible with the parameter,
그런 놈한테는
one parameter. But then for them, it's same like, can you build a house only with one pillar?
보살은 지혜 바람만 있게 아니라 나머지 바람이는 해서 무엇 하는가라고 말하며 그들은
They say a bodhisattva, for it is only possible with the wisdom or paramita, and
세존이시여 그렇지 않습니다.
and Buddha, what do you think about this? And then Buddha explains, you too, for 60 infinite time, you have practiced the paramita of offering religiously. This is something that Buddha has spoken to the Maitreya. Maitreya is Miruk in Korea, and they are also they are friends. And Buddha has said, Maitreya, you have been practicing the offering of the paramita of offering for 60 infinite times. For 60 infinite time, you have practiced the paramita of offering. For another 60, the paramita of forbearing patience. Another 60 for upholding the precepts. And for another 60, you have practiced the regular self-discipline. And for 60 different infinite time, you have practiced the pranya paramita. And then foolish people also say, 인욕 바람이를 60, 정진 바람이를 60, 선정 바람이를 60, 지혜 바람이를 60을 쌓는데 그건 뭐 헌일 왜 했냐 그 얘기야. For 60 different infinite times, you also practice dhyana and samadhi. If that's not necessary, why have you done something that is not necessary for such a long period of time? The above line talks about the importance of developing the wisdom and also the means properly. In order to gain them, you have to practice with the proper means, and also with that you have to practice with the 6 parameters. It's not only the practice of samatha or vipassana, but together with the 6 parameters, you have to be able to continue with your practice. If it's done together, then at a very fast speed, you can go ahead with the very fast enlightenment. It's just like how the water flows down through a very steep valley. The final aim of Bodhisattva is to free from the suffering along with all sentient beings and attain the level of enlightenment. When the Bodhisattvas has said that if only one sentient being remains without gaining enlightenment, then I will also remain the same. That is said in order to gain enlightenment for all, and in order to, and that is not said for your own selfishness. And in order to complete this, you also need to have the wisdom of 6 paramitas and also the merits of means. And you should not go beyond its boundary. And it's also not okay if you just practice one. The wisdom that's far from the method, it's almost like an island with the means. If you believe that you don't need the dhyana and samadhi paramita, upholding precepts of forbearing patience or discipline or offering, if you feel you don't need them, if you feel you don't need them, but you can gain enlightenment directly, that's almost like someone who has attained arahant.
부처의 행상이 불가능하기 때문에 방편으로
and they would not be at the form of Buddha.
부처님의 모습은 안 된다.
Even attaining Aranka, it's also very grand, but compared to Buddha, it is lesser.
부처에 비하면 조족지휘다. 세발피다. 전혀 되질 않는다.
Only with wisdom, if you can attain enlightenment, then that's also a lie. It's not that you have become a Buddha.
부처가 되는 거는 아니다.
As spoken in 대보작경, it's similar to this. For example, a king with minister, they can attain their means. Just like that, with the prana or bodhisattva as a means, if it's a person perfectly, then also a bodhisattva can attain the level of Buddha. So if a king wants to take good care of his country, then he has to have good ministers. And their supports, and he needs to get good support. Then he can have the good land. Just like that. Well, although the parameter of wisdom is very important, the things that are prior conditions, although it's a very good king, behind the name of a very good king, it was only possible because he also had very good ministers behind him. It's not possible to achieve that alone. It's not only Sejong's idea. Also, the language Korean, Sejong realized that it's not possible to develop Korean only with people who are immersed in Chinese, and so he brought he developed the Korean in Jingan Monastery with Venerable Sumi. He discussed and debated with them, and he also participated together with his princess. Why did he do it with princess? If he does it with prince, then he could also have problem because of and the princess were and the pronunciations were all practiced together with the princess. So the better the king is, he has more and better ministers, and the worse the king is, then he would have wicked ministers, and bad ministers, and the good ministers are bound to leave them. This is also very important, and just like that, our enlightenment, it is not something that's possible only with the wisdom. And something that brightens our wisdom and something that helps our wisdom is the 5 parameters. The 5 parameters in front of the prana parameter. Today we'll end today's teaching at this page.